Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. The breaking news is out there. Sunderland have decided to sack their head coach, Lee Johnson, as well as, of course, his assistant manager, McAllister. He's also left the football club with immediate effect as well. Breaking news that came out yesterday, confirmed by Sunderland. I don't usually do my reactions to this sort of news, basically on one specific football club. If I was going to do it, I'd do it at Oxford. Thankfully, we're not going to be sacking Carl Robinson anytime soon. But I thought with this one, there's so many different paths and avenues to go down. It's also, I think, really significant, actually, from a League One perspective as well. We're in the middle of an incredible, mind-blowing, unpredictable League One campaign. I think this is a really, really good example of a side now that's looking at a season thinking, we need to make a change. Now I'm going to be breaking it down into lots of different avenues. Like I said, if you want to see more of this sort of content, sort of like breaking news, things like that, and you want to hear my thoughts on it, me delving deep into it, then let me know in the comments down below. I want to hear your thoughts to this sacking in the comments down below as well. If you like this sort of content as well, you can show your support by hitting that subscribe button and leaving a like. Right, let's get straight into it. Lots of things to get through today. Lee Johnson has been sacked as Sunderland head coach. And I'll come back to head coach because that's significant with immediate effect. So I'm going to sort of break down where we're going to go with this and sort of the different paths we're going to take. So we've got why have Sunderland made this decision? Why have they decided to make a decision? But most importantly, why have they done it now? Was this a knee-jerk decision? And that links back to sort of the first question slightly. Why have they done it? Was this a knee-jerk decision after what was no doubt a humiliating defeat against Bolton on Saturday? A record-breaking defeat for Sunderland, the worst in their history. I mean, record-breaking in the best ways for Bolton, but in literally the worst ways for Sunderland. Was this a decision very reactionary from the football club because of that? We'll be breaking and looking at that in just a second as well. We'll be talking more in depth about that. Is this the right decision for Sunderland when we look at both the short term and the long term? Because we look at now a side that are without a manager, who are third in the league. How are they going to, and what are they going to do next? But most importantly, is this the right decision for both the short term and the long term? Is there a plan with this sacking? Is there a plan with this decision, both for the short term and, like I said, the long term future as well? Because, of course, they've got a new owner who joined, I believe, in February earlier last year in 2021, and he has come in. And he has to look at the long term because he looks to be here for the long run. He needs to make sure the next appointment is good enough and someone that's going to fit this long-term project that Sunderland are no doubt trying to create. And I mean, the other most important thing when we talk about this is the fans. The fans is what makes football how it is. What was the fan reaction? I mean, how have the Sunderland fans taken this? Because we know that there's Sunderland is an amazingly supported football club with very, very passionate supporters. How do they feel about this situation? How are they looking at this decision? And most importantly, I'd say really rounding it all up together, what does this look like for the rest of the season for Sunderland? What does this look for Sunderland right now and for the rest of the season? Because like I said, we look at the short term, we look at the long term. What's next? Is there a new era beginning at Sunderland? If so, what does that look like? And we're going to, we'll be looking at that as well. I watched a lot of sort of Sunderland fan channels, Sunderland podcast yesterday, and of course, they're Sunderland fans. I think it's the most important thing to say. You can tell by the back here, I'm not a Sunderland fan. I'm an Oxford United fan. I create content talking about League One, talking about, again, Oxford United specifically as well. But I think for me, like I said, I think one of the most amazing things about football, and most importantly, the amazing thing about having a platform like this, is you can have an opinion on everything, and everyone will have different opinions, and they'll look at things in so many different ways. That's the beauty of it. Like I said, I'm not here to say and tell Sunderland fans how to think and how to feel. I'll never ever do that. That's never the intention of this podcast. I'm just sort of looking at different things, and we delving into it a little bit deeper than you would as a Sunderland fan. I think sometimes when you're a fan, you sometimes can be look at it maybe with red tinted glasses. I know I certainly would if it happened to my club. I'll be looking at it from Oxford tinted glasses, purely neutral perspective, looking in, what does this look like for Sunderland and how are they going to move forward, most importantly. The most important, I think, first thing and the best place to start for me really is why have they made this call? Why have they made this decision? But also, why have they made this decision now? And what is the thinking behind Lee Johnson now leaving the football club? Now, I mean, the most obvious thing that comes to mind for me straight away is the recent form. It is simply not good enough. Only one win in the last 5 games. Some horrible hammerings, particularly away from home. Their away form this season has been absolutely dreadful. Losing to Portsmouth 4-0, losing to Bolton, like I said, 6-0. Hammering against Sheffield Wednesday. I believe they got beaten, 5-1 by Rotherham as well. These are sides, again, they're going to be competing with Sunderland at the top end of the League One table. Away from home, they're getting absolutely they're getting battered. And recently as well. They played against Lincoln at home. They lost that game 3-1 as well. They're third in the league, which is the most important thing to say as well. So it's not a bad season by any stretch at all. It is, looking at the table, a really good season. I think what we're seeing at Sunderland, though, at the moment is a slight false position based on a phenomenal start to the season. They had a really, really strong start to the year. We're now seeing, I think, some really, really poor form and poor performances creeping in. I'm going to listen to a stat that I read yesterday. Only 7 wins from the last 21 games, and that simply is not good enough. That is not the form of a side that has that ambition to get promoted. So you can sort of see from that perspective why they've done it. It looks to be at the moment basically a heavily form-based decision. It does not look like Sunderland are in great form. We speak a lot about Sunderland. Our clubs in promotion form. What is promotion form? It certainly is not 7 wins in 21 games by any stretch of the imagination at all. This looks like a decision heavily based on performances on the pitch. And like I said, they've had some good performances this season. They've had some really good results this season. But away from home, they've been absolutely, generally, very, very bad and abysmal in some games. We talk about these big sides absolutely wiping them off the park. And that's a real concern. A team like Sunderland needs to be going to the likes of Sheffield Wednesday, like the likes of Rotherham, against the Boltons, the Portsmouth. These sort of teams, and if not winning, at least putting in a respectable performance, giving them a good game. And that isn't just for Sunderland either. That's for any side with the ambition to get promoted. And the facts are they're simply not doing that. They're getting absolutely obliterated against those top sides. And that, again, is a real level of concern. And I think that's a big reason why the new owners and the board at Sunderland have had to make the decision, and they've had to make it now. One thing that I think fascinates me more than anything about Sunderland, and I think it is actually really respectable, and that's the very clear ambition of this football club and what they want to achieve, both at board level, but also from a fan perspective as well. Very clear with what they want to try and do. They need to get out of League One, and they are in a position where I'd say they're desperate to get out of League One, and you can see why. A club like Sunderland, the size, the structure, like I said, the fan base, the very loyal and fantastic fan base at Sunderland, famously fantastic fan base at Sunderland, they need to get out of League One as soon as possible. And again, that's a very clear ambition. It's actually very rare to have a football club, I think, have such a clear ambition for a football club, know exactly where they want to go, and have such a clear expectation of what they want to see from their footballing side. And it couldn't be more clear at Sunderland. They need to get out of League One. They've been in here for, 3-4 years? I think it's 3 years now. Since that relegation, that horrific relegation, down from the Premier League, then straight down from the Championship into League One, they need to get out. They've been trying to do it for a few seasons. It hasn't happened. And like I said, it feels like League One's only getting more difficult year by year. They feel like this is the season to do it. And again, this is where I think it's really fascinating. I want to come back. I want to talk about the club statement, but I think that's really interesting. Again, there's lots of rubbish in the club statement as well. The obvious things where they say we thank Lee and his coaching staff for everything he's done, and he's welcome back, that sort of thing. But there's some really key points in that statement that I think could be really looked at. Quite interestingly. And I think at the moment, and especially at the board at Sunderland, I think they're in a position where they don't. I think it's a case of they don't want to waste this season. They don't want to waste what is no doubt such a talented squad. You look at some players in this side. Ross Stewart, phenomenal this season. Dan Neil, incredible this season. Both of those sides have had some clear and very heavy rumours around them. It looks like they're going to keep both of those in January. They don't want to waste what is, again, such a talented squad. If they can keep them in January, brilliant. If they don't go up by the summer, it's going to be such a struggle to keep hold of some of those players, and especially those two in particular. Like Dan Neil has been linked with Premier League football clubs this January. It looks like they're going to keep hold of him. So they're probably looking at a squad now, going, we can't mess this up. We need to make sure we bring somebody in that we trust, that we think with this very talented group of players that could definitely disperse come the end of the season if we don't get out of this league, to come in and get promoted. And do not waste this season. They're third in the league. They're in a great position in the league. 2 points off top of the league. But the recent form, the last 21 games, the second half of the first half of the season, if that makes sense, has not been good enough. It's been very poor. Can you bring in a manager that can at least create a side that's going to become competitive against these top sides away from home? Improve what is a very bad away form, learn from mistakes, be be more intelligent from a tactical perspective. A lot of people talk about the formation situation, be much more aware of the situation at the football club from player level and formation and tactical level. Do not waste this season, because there's some players in this football club that will leave at the end of the season if you mess this up. So they look at this now, they're going, it's a massive risk. And that's when they ask the question, what would I have done? Why have they made the decision? Well, the obvious thing for me, and I'll bring the club statement up now, and hopefully you can see it on the screen. Again, like I said, it's got a bit of cloud, if you like, in there of the classic. And I mean, it does very, very clearly also say as well, it says 41 wins in 75 games. That's a very, very good record for a manager. First victory at Wembley Stadium since 1973. He won League One Manager of the Month on 2 occasions. There's no doubt that he's a very, very good manager. And he will go on and get another job. There's no doubt about that at all. Lee Johnson's managerial career is certainly not over. At Sunderland, though, of course, it is over. And again, there's some really, really decent accolades in there. But the truth is, they have to look at now. And Sunderland have to be selfish and look at themselves. Now, they have got a track record of sacking managers that maybe either shouldn't have been sacked or maybe have made wrong appointments anyway. I guess they've got that, and they have done that. And that also comes down to the very clear level of expectation of Sunderland. They know they need to get out of this league, which is why I think the next appointment, and we'll come on to that in just a second, has to be spot on. When looking at the statement as well, I don't think Lee for his commitment, endeavour, all that sort of stuff. But this here, we firmly believe that it's in the best interest of Sunderland FC as we strive to earn promotion this season. Very, very clear what they want to do. Again, reassuring the fans exactly their ambition, because they know the fans' ambition. They know the fans' expectation. Get out of this league. Again, very, very reassuring. That's what Sunderland and the board, and at board level, they have a very, very clear and most importantly, the same expectation as the fans. To earn promotion this season. Lee and Jamie will always be welcome to the Stadium of Light. Best wishes. The process to appoint a new head coach, we'll come to that in just a second, will commence immediately at further update regarding the club's interim coaching setup will be communicated shortly as well. Ultimately, they need to basically speak to the fans and definitely announce to the fans what they're going to look now, and they're going to bring an interim manager come the end of the season, all that sort of thing as well. But I want to come on to sort of the next steps in sort of due course. I want to talk about the head coach situation, because he's not the manager, he's the head coach. It doesn't look like, and I think it's well known that they don't do recruitment the way that a lot of football clubs do, or as a manager would, should I say. I think it's becoming more often now that if you have a head coach, you're not as influential at recruitment level than a manager would be. A manager will sit down with his recruitment team, he'll sit down with his scouts and go, well, we need a left back. What have you got in terms of scout reports on that left back? Does he fit the style? And then work very, very closely with his recruitment team. A head coach doesn't do that. They have people above that sort of level looking at that's almost a director of football level above that. And they make sort of recruitment decisions. They come to the football club. They bring that player to the football club if if all the recruitment process goes smoothly. And your job as head coach is very, very simple, very, very difficult, but simple, and in the name, to coach the team. That's what you have to do, to coach the team. So he's not the manager. He is head coach. There will be question marks about can you blame the recruitment? I mean, for someone, if he's not heavily involved in the recruitment, then probably not. That would be a very, very harsh thing to do. But head coach, it's going to be a head coach from what it looks like. So it's not going to be a manager. That can sometimes put a few managers off. Do you want to come in and be a head coach? Do you want to come in and be a manager? That can again be a bit of a put off. Will Sunderland go and appoint a manager? Of course they will. Sunderland will never have a problem with finding and bringing in a manager. Sunderland are a big enough football club. They do not need to worry about that. There'll be no concern about bringing a manager in. No one was going to be put off though. But some people will be put off, but they're still going to be able to get one. But again, the head coach role and the manager role, very, very different roles. And again, he's left as head coach, not as manager. So again, there's a very, very big line, a big difference between those sort of things. There's a fine line, but a huge difference. The recruitment, again, to blame him on the recruitment, little bit harsh in my opinion. And I also think the recruitment has been fairly good actually in January this season, but also in the summer as well. And also the final thing, talking about sort of why they made the decision, and it is the biggest question, it's the most to talk about, but ultimately they believe that someone else can come in and work, like I said, with no doubt a very, very talented football squad and go and get promoted. Very, very clear with their line there. I read it to you just then. We believe it's the best interest of the football club to bring and make a change to earn what they believe is the most important thing, promotion out of League One. They believe clearly that someone else can come in and go and do that. So was this a knee-jerk decision after Saturday's result against Bolton? probably not. It probably wasn't. It certainly didn't help, and it was the nail in the coffin for Lee Johnson. If they'd lost that game 2-0, would they have sacked him? Maybe not. But they lost 6-0. And I think you've got to come back to that. You know, we can talk about recent form, we can talk about expectation, and we talk about the size of the club and where they want to go as a football club. You lose 6-0, you've got to brush your team down after losing 6-0 and go and say to these players and walk into the dressing room and say, right, we've lost 6-0 today. How are we going to bounce back? How are we going to now go on and achieve the goal of promotion? It's difficult. One of the most difficult things, and he said himself in the interview, Lee Johnson, he said it's the worst part of it, worst point in his managerial career. And he can't be, and I don't think he'll be exaggerating there. Losing 6-0 is an awful, awful day. And ultimately, for him, and unfortunately, it's lost him a job. That 6-0 defeat has lost him a job. His recent form certainly has not helped him at all. But that was the final nail in the coffin. To lose 6-0 in the manner that they did is absolutely unacceptable. And for a football club like Sunderland, it comes back to that expectation thing again. It's not acceptable, and there will be a clear sense of concern within that football club as well. And, you know, when you break records like the worst defeat in the history, it's difficult to come back from that. Really, really difficult. What sort of brings on next about, is this the right decision for Sunderland, looking at the long-term and the short-term effects? I think it's important we look at the long and short-term effects because, again, it comes down to the appointment, really. It comes down to the next step. What have they got in mind? What have Sunderland got in mind in terms of changing a manager? And the board solely now are going to be looking at the league table and they're going to be looking at the season. It's very, very clear what they want to try and do. They need to go and get promoted. Could they go with an interim job until the end of the season? Maybe they might go and do that. Again, you've got to try and find a manager that's going to be willing to be a head coach till the end of the season. Again, they might go. I can't see them appointing a manager. I think it will be a head coach because of this. They've got someone above who I'd forgotten his name completely, but someone above the head coach role that does the recruitment. And again, that means that the manager will have to be the head coach because of that sort of structure they've got within the club. But I think it does come down to the next appointment. Are you going to go interim? Are you going to go short-term in that sense? Are you going to go similar to what Manchester United have done? Maybe go with a short-term appointment and then move that person out, move that person upstairs, or even maybe go short-term appointment on a 6-month contract and then go permanently. Again, it depends. I don't think they're going to go with the short-term appointment and then go upstairs. It seems that they've got a very, very clear structure with what they want to try and do. They've got a chairman. They've got someone like a director of football in charge of that. So I can't see it being a consultancy role. I think it might be a case of an interim job for 6 months, see where they are. If they get promoted, then maybe there could be a chance of a full-time job, or you go with a 6-month deal. Maybe they don't go up. Maybe they create a backbone, sort of reorganise the football club, and then go and appoint maybe a long-term manager. I don't know. There's many different routes they could go down. But again, it's really, really important. We talk about short-term, we talk about long-term. It's about finding the right place to be. Where you're going to be sat in that, and that comes down to the appointment. In terms of timing, a day before deadline day, yeah, it's slightly strange, but I also think it comes down very, very simply to, it comes down to a very, very clear, like I said at the start, it comes down to you just don't want to waste the season. So does it matter when you do it? If they do not want to waste this season, they've got a very, very talented squad of players. It seems as though they've looked at this and gone, it's deadline day tomorrow. We're not going to sell any more players. There's not going to be more players leaving the club, or at least influential first-team players leaving the football club that we want to keep hold of. Now we know that's going to happen. Let's not waste the season. Let's go and make a decision. A huge decision in sacking a manager. The most difficult thing you can do as a chairman, I imagine, is making a decision like that. But ultimately, they've had to do it. And they now need a reaction from the players, because the players will have to take some blame for this as well. It's not solely on Lee Johnson. So again, that's something they've got to try and do as well. And most important, I heard it when I was listening to the Sunderland podcast. This football club is not sustainable sat in League One for another season. They do not need to be sat here again. So they need to try and bring in a manager that's going to get them promoted. Use what is no doubt such a good side and get them up. Because like I said, they're third in the league. They're third in the league, 2 points off top of the league. There's nothing stopping them from going and get automatic promotion, and that'll be the ultimate dream for Sunderland fans. So they need to go and try and do that. So again, it's quite difficult to judge it at long term and short term, because it depends on that next appointment. Are you going to go short term with your appointment, or are you going to go long term straight away, a younger manager, and then they've got foreign owners? They might go down a foreign route with a young, exciting, up and coming coach, bring him into the club, and look at the long term project. I don't know. Like I said, at the moment, there's a lot of people flying around. I think Grant McCann is somebody who's just been sacked by Hull City. He's been heavily linked with the job. I don't know. Would he come in and want to be a head coach? I think he was manager at Hull, so would he want to see also a change in role there? I'm not entirely sure. Fan reaction is so important as well. I decided to pick out sort of 2 different tweets, and again, Twitter's can be a dark place the best of times, but I think looking at the fans, because again, they're the most important thing, looking at the Sunderland fans, what have they got to say, and how do they feel going into this? One fan said, Sunderland fans should want better. Sunderland are a big club, but many clubs, some fans think they have the right to success, and that's not how it works. I hope you get this sort of, and because as always, it's the fans who suffer. I believe that was a non-Sunderland fan. Another Sunderland fan says, we have given him the entire window, won as a trophy, undoubtedly got us playing the best football we've played in League One, spent serious time in the automatic promotions, unlike any previous manager, we sit third and we sack him. Seems like a childish, naive, reactive decision with zero plan at all. Again, that's one side of the story. That's somewhere that clearly is not happy with the sacking, clearly not happy with the decision to sack the manager, and somebody that can look at that and go look at previous success, look at where they are in the league, and think that's a really quite harsh decision. Is it reactionary? I mean, it's always going to look reactionary when you lose 6-0 and sack a manager. That looks very reactionary. So it would have been interesting if they would have done it at 2-0, but you can clearly see there someone not happy with that sort of decision. That's someone I think that believes this is quite a knee-jerk decision. The standards of foot, and this is another Sunderland fan, sorry, the standards have fell so far that people think that this, bad stuff, like this is unacceptable. Can't sack a manager based on one result. We got absolutely smashed by a bad League One club. Worst result in our history by none. Probably our 4th or 5th battering this season. So again, this is someone completely on the other side. Very, very contrasting opinion here. Somebody that is the right decision to sack the manager. And like I said, that proves a point there. You can't please everybody. There will be Sunderland fans. There will be fans that think this is a knee-jerk, rash, naive, childish decision. And there'll be some people that go, we're not doing very well. We're in bad form. Is Lee Johnson the right man to take this football club to the next level? I don't think so. It's the right decision to sack the manager. You'll not please everyone. Again, that's the beauty of football in ways. It's a horrible place to be as Sunderland. I'm not trying to say it's a beautiful place to be, but that's what's so interesting about football. People have so many different opinions on it, and they'll have so many different opinions on what's going to happen at this football club, and looking at the long-term effects. How is Sunderland going to improve, and how they're going to make sure the next steps are right. And that, for me, is so important. What next for Sunderland? Do they have a new manager lined up? You'd hope so. You really would hope so. You'd hope that something has been put into place. You'd hope there's some sort of plan. I mean, we talked about that recent tweet there from a Sunderland fan with no plan. You'd hope there's a plan. To sack a manager, when I talk about there, clearly they've made the decision, they said it themselves in their statement. This is because of their ambition to get promoted into the Championship. So if they don't have a plan, it's going to look very, very silly. Which is why, again, it comes down to the same thing of, you can't now sit and you can't rush into the decision, because the next decision is really, really important when it comes to appointing a new manager. You can't rush into it, but you also really, really importantly can't sit around and take too long for an appointment, because you take too long, you might get an assistant manager bounce. I mean, it won't be assistant manager because he's gone as well at McAllister. Maybe someone else within the club will have to come in if they don't appoint a manager before the next game, and if you don't see a reaction from that, then you really need to start making some quick decisions, and you need to be really, really quick with what you try and do. But you also need to make sure it's the right one. So again, it's such difficult, and you're stuck in between a no win, if you like, when this happens, and it's no win until you appoint someone. But you've got to make sure that you don't go down this taking too much time, which is where you hope there's a plan, but you also don't want to make the wrong decision. So for a board level, it's so hard, and it has to be the right decision, because Sunderland, like I said, are risking wasting what is, at the moment, third in the league, on paper, a decent season. The form hasn't been good enough, granted, but whatever happens, you've got to make sure, and Sunderland have got to make sure that the next steps are the most important. So it's going to be really, really interesting. A few names that have been flying around. You could go down the nostalgic route, bring in Roy Keane, Gus Poyet. I know Sam Allardyce's been linked. For me, definitely not. Don't go down that route. I really don't think you should go down there. I think you've got to look at more longer-term plans. I think more longer-term fixes. It's a young owner. It's a young foreign owner with really new, exciting ideas at that football club. I think he's going to bring success to that football club. I do believe that. I don't think going down that route, and I don't think he'll go down that route either, because I can't see it. I can't see him ringing at Roy Keane and saying, do you want to come in until the end of the season? It seems too nostalgic. It seems too poetic for me. Make sure you've got a plan. Be very, very clear what you're trying to do. Bring in a manager who's got philosophy, got style, got a long-term plan that you believe has got the ability to take this football club where it deserves to be. And that's getting promoted. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see how this story develops. Hopefully enjoy this different episode of the podcast, focusing on one club and a bit of breaking news surrounding Sunderland. Like I said, hopefully enjoyed it. I'd be intrigued to see what you Sunderland fans have got to say in the comments down. But also, League One fans, let me know in the comments down below as well. And I'd be intrigued to see what you've got to say. As always, on the road to 700 subscribers, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really would mean the world. And it's you all very, very soon. It's deadline day, by the way. Really, really exciting stuff as a recording. So I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care.